Would you all please be seated? Hello. It is wonderful that you all came here to hear me speak to you today. This was a great thing that you did, one of the many that you will do in your life. Coming to listen to me today was the right thing to do. And funnily enough, that is the message I will talk to you about today, doing the right thing in a difficult situation. I know doing the right thing seems obvious as something to aspire to, but if you think about it, it is easy to do the right thing when times are easy. But what about when more is at stake? Today I'm going to give you two quotes that you've quite possibly heard before, but may not have thought in the context which I'll be speaking. The first is a quote by Gandalf, the wizard from The Lord of the Rings, a book by J.R.R. Tolkien and movie directed by Peter Jackson. Frodo, the hero of this tale, is talking about how he wished that he did not live in the time of the war that occurs in the story. Gandalf turns to him in a nice way, says, "So do all who see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All they have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to them." The second quote is from an equally illustrious character known as Batman. The second quote is, "It is not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me." This quote comes from the Batman Begins movie, directed by Christopher Nolan. Today I will discuss and reflect on the relevance of these two extraordinary fictional people's quotes for everyone in this chapel. We all have difficult situations in life. Each and every one of us will likely have to make a decision in life in a difficult situation. And the thing about difficult choices is that they're difficult. Most difficult choices aren't a win-win either. An example would be that maybe you have two friends or two organizations to which you are loyal, and they clash. This instance is something that you cannot change. People who you care about are involved, and you can't lament the difficult choice, and you can't sit around wishing the choice wasn't before you. It is. If you are in a difficult situation and you wish you weren't, Gandalf would say, "So do all who see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you." And I agree. Difficult situations are tough. It may be hard to concentrate on what you must do, what the right thing to do is. But if you step back and realize that your difficult situation is your situation and there's no getting out of it, then you can accept it. Rather than being frantic or panicked over something that you cannot change, you can step back and clear-headedly decide what you wish to do in the situation that has presented itself. It is not possible to make a good decision in a situation you can't accept exists. Sometimes in difficult situations, it is hard to find the courage to do what we think is right. This is where Batman comes in. And no, I'm not suggesting a life of vigilantism. I'm actually talking about the quote, "It is not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me." Let's look at Frodo as a reference. He's the character to whom Gandalf is speaking from the previous quote. Frodo is a terrified hobbit, and he must risk his life to save the world or let the world be ruined. He has a choice. He could run off and abandon his quest, or he could complete it. But if he did abandon his duty, what would he be? How would this action define him? Well, it would define him as someone who abandons the world to destruction. And I know that most of us don't have to make decisions regarding world cataclysms, but the quote and the idea still stands. The courage to do what is right can be hard to find. But if you can find it, you'll be defined by what you do. If Frodo had run from what he knew was the right thing to do because he was frightened, he would be defined by this action as well. Deep in the recesses of Frodo's heart, he no doubt believes that stopping Sauron, the villain in the story, is the right thing to do. What Frodo does is he has the courage to act on what he thinks is right. His actions reflect what he feels is right inside. How do you think that Frodo would feel if he had run? Personally, I imagine that he would feel a good deal of regret. I think that if he took the easier way out initially, it would be harder later on. Wouldn't it be difficult to be perceived to be something inside you don't want to be defined as what you do not think is right inside? This is why I feel that Batman is on the right track. It is true what he says, that it is not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. And thus, if confronted by a difficult situation, how we react, and what we do defines us. Why? Because the definition is but what people see something as. A dog is defined as a dog because I associate the word dog with the animal and the actions it takes, just as you define Addison as the person, me, and what I'm doing. Some of you may be defining me as a poor speechwriter, but that's okay, I understand, even though I hope you're enjoying yourself so far. I also know that people are not one-dimensional. They are defined by many things. One action is unlikely to change who someone is completely, but many actions added together may define someone's character, and many is more than one dimension. I believe that if you act on what you think is right and good, in the belief that you're doing good despite the fear you may feel, that you will feel good and you can be safe in your thoughts. If your conscience and your actions do not line up, this is, in my opinion, the way you will regret your decision. Now, I've spoken of fictional Frodo's decisions. However, what I am speaking about is readily apparent in the world we live in both the famous and the not so famous. Abraham Lincoln is a name I'm sure you all have heard. He lived in very difficult times. He was the president of the United States in the middle of its Civil War. He had to make a choice. Near the end of his first term, and just before his inauguration for his second, he was attempting to pass the 13th Amendment, which was an amendment which would abolish slavery. To pass this amendment, Lincoln would have to do what amounts to political corruption today and risk that the amendment would lengthen a war that had already claimed more lives than the U.S. lost in the entirety of World War II. This is a difficult situation, but in this situation, Lincoln chose the 13th Amendment because he believed it was right. If he had denied the need for the amendment or allowed slavery to continue, he would be defined as a person who let enslavement continue. Instead, today, he is a hero for millions and someone who freed millions. In more recent history, other real-life people are defined by their actions. On 9/11, thousands of firefighters and rescue people answered the call to save people from inside the towers. This is a difficult decision. They risked death, where they would leave behind families that would miss them, and try to save survivors from buildings that were soon to collapse. Many of the firefighters died. However, to many, the firefighters are defined as heroes by their actions. Difficult situations are amongst the most important decisions anyone can make. Why? Because if they didn't matter, they wouldn't be difficult. I'm not here to tell you what your decisions have to be when you make them, or give examples of how people should behave in certain circumstances. I am simply reflecting on these two quotes. What I am suggesting is that life is about choices. And if you think about these quotes, it may be easier to make a difficult choice in a rough situation. Following your conscience, accepting the situation, and thinking rationally about possible consequences is how I think these difficult situations can be navigated. Thanks for listening, and you can rise and sing hymn 505.